to default. Okay, it's picking up that. Now we switch back over to the Yeti. Okay, there we go. OBS is being weird. Anyway, Turning Red. Turning Red is a good. The latest from Pixar, and actually something I've been looking forward to because I know the director's name after I became sort of a fan of hers after her short before, I want to say, either Inside Out or something from the like 2017 2018. Anyway, her short that she did was Bao. It's about the Chinese mom who deals with her son growing up by basically reliving her son's experience through a bao dumpling. You know, the experience of raising her son through a bao dumpling. And so Domeshi is the... Yes, that was the... So yeah, this is her feature-length debut. And it is absolutely amazing. Unlike a lot... This doesn't feel like a Pixar movie by committee, like how much like how Disney tends to go for the this is made by Disney, you don't need to know who the actual people behind it are. This feels like this individual director's work. Like this feels like this is her style brought to the screen. And so the story is basically Teen Wolf, but instead of turning into a werewolf, the protagonist turns into a giant red panda. I should specify Teen Wolf, the movie with Michael J. Fox, not the MTV CW wannabe melodrama. But yeah, the premise here is coming of age, specifically for a young girl. Since most coming of age stories tend to focus on boys, this one focused specifically on the daughter of Chinese immigrants to Canada. This takes place in Toronto in the mid-2000s, I believe 2002. And Mei Ling Lee, the protagonist here, starts off as, a traditional kid, straight A student and overachiever and that sort of thing. And her friend group have started noticing boys and the like, and are, they're still dorky, but they're much more hormonal. And May has yet to hit puberty, and this movie is all about hitting puberty. And like, there's even parent groups, I should specify conservative parent groups, that regular ass parents probably laugh their asses off at it. But there's a scene in which Mei Ling's mom, played by Sandra Oh, in her second Disney animated production, after voicing the main antagonist in, the head of Fang in Raya and the Last Dragon. But Sandra Oh's character, the mom, very overbearing, very controlling of Mei Ling, and doesn't like that. Actually doesn't really know much about Mei Ling's life outside of what she does for her. And doesn't really like her friends, doesn't really like doesn't really expect her to be quote unquote normal, like go to concerts or anything like that. She expects, she's basically planned out May's life for her. And unfortunately, hey Hillian, talking Turning Red. But yeah, basically, there's a scene in this movie where Mei Ling's mom comes to the bathroom thinking May's started having her, well, let's just say it, her period, and in the confusion just brings in an entire armful of different kinds of pads. And there's there's even a bit where Mei Ling's mom embarrasses her at school by holding up a box of pads, and it's so these are, this is the coming of age puberty story from a girl's perspective. And I think having that shift gives it a new take that you don't normally see, because we've seen, and we've seen so many stories about young boys coming of age, and those trials and tribulations. There's like oftentimes there'll be like family melodrama stories where it's like, oh, the dad's gotta go pick out the kind of pads and he doesn't know how tampons work, and garbage like that, but never really focusing so much on the girl's issues and her trials and tribulations. So after we're introduced to Mei Ling and her friends and her family, we learned that Mei Ling's family has a curse of sorts, in that when they hit puberty and they basically can turn into giant red pandas. And turns out their ancestor was a total furry and wanted to be a giant red panda, and so the gods made her a giant red panda, and all of the daughters in that family lineage can turn into giant red pandas when they come of age. And so the story revolves around Mei Ling trying to deal with the fact that she's a giant ass red panda unless she can control her emotions Hulk style. And what the main themes of the story are, you've got seriously, you've got Mei Ling's struggles with being in her mom, under her mom's control, and it's sort of the traditional family drama of the parents are traditional and they expect certain things to be upheld. They expect the kids to respect them, and they have a whole lot of traditional values, versus the protagonist who wants to be more individual, and that sort of old world versus new world mentality butting heads. And so on top of that, you've also got the story, you add to that themes of generational trauma, generational violence, essentially, in that we learn partway through the movie when it turns out Mei Ling's grandmother and her aunties learn that she has discovered that this power has awakened in her, and they decide, and we learned that Mei Ling's mom went through similar trauma when she first started turning into a giant red panda, and that she's essentially passing that down onto Mei Ling inadvertently and not really realizing it, and so that becomes a major theme over the course of the movie. But in terms of like actual filmmaking and style and all that, this is gorgeous. This has great character design while also having just immaculate attention to detail. The fur effects, the clothing effects, the the background effects, the details on all of that are gorgeous, and yet the characters look cartoonish. And there are points where they kind of look almost Ghibli-esque. Heck, this movie has a bit in the opening that looks like a Ghibli cooking montage with the dad. So there's there's these aesthetics to it, and then you can see even little bits of like Aardman's sort of style of character design in parts here. So there's like these interesting cartoonish facial features and character designs, while keeping Pixar's amazing attention to detail for the. That's the whole thing. This is not untrodden ground. We've covered this in like I mentioned, the aforementioned Teen Wolf movie. American Dragon Jake Long has covered issues of this, as well as its Cartoon Network counterpart, Juniper Lee. But we've even had this sort of issues dealt with just recently in Encanto and in Shang-Chi as well. So there's these are recurring themes that are starting to get more attention as we allow for more more filmmakers to tell their stories. And so we're seeing stories of old world versus new world and generational trauma, and tackling these issues that face a lot of different communities and people aside from traditional white Anglo-Saxon Americans and Canadians and whatnot. Oh, absolutely. And especially since, oh yeah, Shang-Chi deals a lot with generational trauma, and that's the main focus of the film. So I feel like there's definitely there's a definite connection to be made there, in that this is a recurring theme that we're starting to see in more films now. But yeah, the character design is fantastic. The voice acting is amazing. Not just with the kids, but from Sandra Oh. You've also got what's his name? James Hong, long-standing Asian actor in Hollywood. James Hong plays a character that basically becomes the sort of ritual master to help seal away the panda, but he's otherwise just hangs out at the temple where Mei Ling's family live and take care of. That's the other thing I didn't know, is that that her family runs a temple in the city of Toronto. It's like a traditional Chinese temple dedicated to their ancestors from China. Within just like a stop in the city of Toronto. It's just, oh hi, there's also a Chinese temple here. I didn't know if that was a thing or not, but that's the main set. That's where her family lives, and that's what they essentially do for a living, is provide basically serve as a part tourist trap, part temple, and it's sort of historical structure. But on top of everything I've also said, the action set pieces, the animation itself is just beautifully gorgeous. Exactly what you would expect from Pixar, but it allows for, wouldn't call it a community center. It's basically, how there's like the Shinto shrines throughout Japan where you can just go and visit a Shinto shrine. It's basically that, but it's thanks for that. But it's basically a family temple that has been built in like residential Toronto, and I'm not sure how it works, if that's an actual thing. I've never been to Toronto. I don't know if that's just like a thing where you can have like a family that has lived, that essentially moved to Toronto and turned the property into a temple. But it's more or less a tourist trap, essentially. That's how they seem to make money, is from selling tchotchkes to tourists. But yeah, that's the other thing too, is that this is a very diverse cast of characters. Not just the main characters, not just Mei Ling. Like, you got Mei Ling, who's Chinese. Her friend Abby in the overalls is Korean. I'm not sure. I think Miriam, the ginger, is just a standard, Anglo-Saxon Canadian, essentially. And then her friend Priya, I'm assuming is some kind of South Asian, either Indian or Pakistani, or somewhere from that region. And even in the background, you saw that one of the school security guard wears a turban, so he might be Sikh. So all the characters in the background at this school range. I mean, you say that, Hillian, but that is a major plot point, is in order to go to a boy band concert, they sell free hugs and merchandise to the kids at school. They literally sell free panda hugs and merchandise to the kids in this school to make money to go to a concert. And that's a plot. That is a major plot point in the second act. And once again, it's just fun. It's just genuinely charming and fun and heartbreaking at times. Like, especially as it gets to the climax where all of the lies start to get revealed, and Mei Ling has to actually face up to her mother. Absolutely. Disney is probably already working on the Mei Ling Reddit Panda plushies as we speak. Like, there's so much stuff to easily turn into marketable tchotchkes to sell at Disney World in this movie. It's like, how toyetic can you get? But at the same point, it actually works it actually works within the plot of the movie. So it works. So it's able to work within the plot of the movie, and they aren't. So if they do spit it out in the merchandise, it would be more fitting than, say, any time else Disney would do it, which is just, putting out merchandise to just make money. And it had nothing to do, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the movie. Here, there's stuff within the movie that you could literally make and sell at, like, Disneyland or something. But, let me pull up my notes real quick. See if there's anything else I missed. Oh, that's the other thing too, is that basically all Canadians are furries. We learned this from the movie, that all Canadians are in fact furries, because not just the kids in the high school, but like her friends, everybody is into the red panda. They love the red panda. Even May begins to enjoy being a panda. So it's basically a coming of age tale about learning that you're a furry. Inadvertently, I don't want to say that was her plan, but it's definitely it definitely could work as a story of like, hey mom, turns out I'm a furry, and basically everybody in Canada is a furry too, because they have no problem wearing ears and tails. So yeah, this movie confirms all Canadians are in fact furries. But just absolutely gorgeous animation. It's weird to think of it as a period piece, but this took place 20 years ago, and that's kind of messing with my head a bit. And yeah, the climax is not what you would expect, but I loved the hell out of it. It is a wild twist and turn of events. It's like, this came right the hell out of nowhere, but I'm into it. I won't say what it is exactly, but just, there's a big fight at the end, I'll say that much. The only other thing to say is that the boy band music is composed by Billie Eilish and her brother Finian. And in fact, Phineas, I think. But yeah, Billie Eilish's brother that helps co-write her songs and stuff. The two of them write all of the boy band music, and then Phineas is one of the boy band members. Kung Fu Red Pen. But yeah, it's like, holy shit, that was Billie Eilish and her brother making the music, composing the music, and then he's in the cast as one of the boy band members. Yeah, this is a real charming movie, and really the only pushback I've seen against it is, oh jeez, why you gotta make me look old? Why you gotta make me feel old forward? God. But yeah, this movie is charming. It's sweet. It's funny. It's beautiful to look at, as per usual for Pixar, and it's just a great coming of age story. It really is a genuinely good movie all around, and I'm very happy that Domeshi's directorial debut for a feature it turned out so well, because that means we can get hyped for her next project, whatever that turns out to be, whether it's through Disney Animation or she continues to work at Pixar. But I'm very hyped to see what she does next, because this showed that she is a very capable director, and I can't wait to see what happens after this for her. And yeah, the only people I've really seen push back against this movie are like weirdo assholes who don't like diversity in films, and conservative parent groups who don't like talking about icky girl puberty. That seems to be the only issues. People, those seem to be the only people pushing back against this movie. Everywhere else, I've seen people just enjoying the hell out of it. That's the other thing too. I watched this in a Discord, and there's just a lot of gay energy in this movie. A lot of the Discord members who I was watching it with were part of the LGBTQ community, and they could feel all of this sort of latent gay energy throughout the movie. And it did turn out that Priya, the one friend, was supposed to have a lesbian love interest, but that got cut because Disney. But yeah, I'm sure those ultra traditionalists don't like that storyline element again. But yeah, this really is a beautiful, lovely, charming movie. And honestly, I'd be shocked if anybody wasn't a fan of this at some point that wasn't one of those loser chuds that hates it for stupid reasons. Yeah, Turning Red is quickly shot up the ranks as one of my favorite movies of the year. Trust me, I'm sure you could find articles from conservative publications talking about how Little Mermaid sets a bad example by promoting kids yelling at their parents. I'm sure those articles exist. But that wasn't the only new release this weekend. We actually got a second release. This time over on Netflix. The Adam Project. This is the latest from Shawn Levy, the director of such hits as I've completely forgotten what all he's done. He most recently did the movie Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds, but he's also done Real Steel. He goes all the way back to frickin'. That's all producer. I need the director. He's directed episodes of Stranger Things, apparently. The Night at the Museum movies. The first Disney Cheaper by the Dozen movie, which, oh my god, I've got to review that next weekend. Jesus Christ. Disney, why you do this to me? Apparently he worked on The Famous Jet Jackson over at Disney, but he is also the director of Big Fat Liar. So he's been working in young adult and family entertainment. He directed the Pink Panther reboot with Steve Martin. But he's been working in mostly family entertainment for the most part, and then only kind of recently started breaking out into more general audience stuff. Oh, I'm not surprised by that at all, yeah. But yeah, this movie is interesting. The premise here is that Ryan Reynolds plays the future version of a kid that is the main protagonist, Adam. And apparently this kid and him have some chemistry because they've been doing like commercials in between as sort of like side promotion for the movie, and they have this solid back and forth chemistry with each other. But the idea is that a kid in the present gets a visit from his future self from 2050, and they have to go back in time to try and save the future self's wife. And then it's later turns into, we have to try and save the world by preventing something from the past altogether. And it's once again, solid premise. This is not a bad premise, and I'm sure that where you could find plenty of films and television series that have done this exact premise before. But I think something was lost in the making of the movie, because I was looking into it, I was wondering, like, wait, why are there 4 credited screenwriters? And it turns out this script went through 4 separate drafts before the one that finally made it to the screen. So there were 4 separate writers doing their own rewrites all the way up until the final shooting script. And I think that explains a lot, because there's a lot of ideas that just pop in and out and just never quite work. Like, that's the thing is, Ryan Reynolds, unless his style of humor really does it for you, this is more akin to Ryan in, oh god, what was that other Netflix movie he did? Red Notice, where he's just kind of doing his Ryan Reynolds thing, but it's not working because there's nothing for him to, like, do. Whereas if he's, when he's playing Deadpool, or when he has all of these other things, like even Free Guy had him have character moments and gave him more of a personality than just, oh hey, it's Ryan Reynolds. This, not so much. This is basically just, hey, it's Ryan Reynolds. And if you are just kind of okay on Ryan Reynolds, or you don't really care about Ryan Reynolds, then you're not going to get a whole lot out of this movie, sadly. I will say the effects are good. They're decent. They're better than you would expect. I mean, they're about as good as you would expect from Netflix. They're not amazing. Some of the effects don't work. There's a de-aging. There's one character who's de-aged from the present, and who's supposed, made to look younger in the present, and that effect does not work quite as well. It's very much the early days of the de-aging that Disney has done with, like, Star Wars. Like the Rogue One kind of de-aging. And the plot is just kind of there. Like, there's no real weight to it. There's no real reason to care, ultimately. That isn't to say the movie is bad by any means. It's just not very, it doesn't really hook you in. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's not as scary as Boba Fett's de-aging, but it's much more akin to, like, the Grand Moff Tarkin de-aging in Rogue One, where you can tell it's just something's not quite right yet. But, the villain has got nothing. There's nothing for the villain to do besides do villain things. I am the villain, and therefore I must villain things. And that doesn't really go anywhere. There's no real pathos in defeating her in any way. Zoe Saldana is barely in the movie. She's basically relegated to just a cameo, essentially. She's there for a scene and then tragically sacrifices herself in order for the hero. They basically fridged Zoe Saldana in this movie. They basically fridged her. And that's kind of what the point I'm trying to get at. Somewhere along these 4 drafts, plot lines got added and dropped, and everything's kind of a hot mess. And even though you've got the likes of Ryan Reynolds, of Mark Ruffalo as his dad in the past, of Jennifer Garner, who's at least decent usually, but she's relegated to just being the mom. Zoe Saldana, who is a good actress in her own right, just kind of relegated to a basic cameo as the love interest before sacrificing herself for the greater good. The greater good. And Ryan Reynolds and this kid are all right. I honestly think the kid gets on my nerves. The kid is like, I think the problem is that the kid is given dialogue that makes him sound smart, but anybody who actually pays attention to what he's saying knows that he's just a dumbass kid. So it thinks it's smarter than it actually is. And so you've got this kid trying to basically be a young Ryan Reynolds, smart aleck kid, and he and Ryan Reynolds have great chemistry and great, repartee, but what they're given to say is kind of is just not very good. And I think that kind of basically, he's basically like a less stereotypically autistic Sheldon. And the kid is fine. I'm sure the kid would be great in a role that had better writing. But what we got here was just kind of, it's fine. It's absolutely perfectly fine. And in fact, I think the biggest problem is that they spend so much time trying to explain the time travel that it misses the point that it's just, like, that's the whole thing, is like, Back to the Future didn't need to explain the time travel the whole time. It just told you the story of what happened when you got somebody who could go back through time. It didn't explain the mechanics and the repercussions of time travel. And you don't need to explain that. You just need to acknowledge time travel exists and then just know in the back of your mind to keep these things in order, so that you don't mess with the time, because you don't mess with it. But movie kind of does the opposite problem of what J.K. Rowling did, because this reminded me of Sean's video on Harry Potter, Shaun, the YouTuber. He did a great video essay on Harry Potter and just breaking down all of the issues with the books and the storyline and everything and the whole writing. I think that's the thing, is like, and I think there's a couple of smaller budget stuff that might do. I haven't seen Time Cop, but I heard good things about it. And I don't know how they handle the time travel in that movie. But yeah, the first Terminator as well. The first Terminator movie really got the hang of, like, acknowledge it exists and then tell your story. And then don't worry about explaining everything. And this movie does that has that problem where it's just they feel like they need to explain everything to the audience because otherwise they're gonna have questions. And oh no, the nerds are asking about the quantum mechanics of time travel and what about da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, no, the Endgame had it right. Endgame had it right. You explain the basics of it and then don't worry about it and just tell the story. But yeah, this one, the fights are pretty weak. They actually do a lot of shaky cam in it, and I feel like it detracts from the movie because the minute the camera starts shaking, I feel like, okay, you're trying to hide the fact that your action sucks. Great, fantastic. I can't not see shaky cam and think, oh, this is good action. I immediately think, you're cutting corners, aren't you? So yeah, this guy is supposed to be directing Deadpool 3 with Ryan Reynolds, but given the fact that they did Free Guy together, I'm a little more hopeful, because I think this movie's problem is the fact that it has a Netflix budget. It feels like they want to go bigger, but they're relegated to a Netflix direct-to-video budget. So I think with the Disney money backing them, Deadpool 3 will be fine. But the Adam Project here, Corey Coleman over at Double Toasted kind of had a good allegory and a good comparison. This is kind of like a mid-tier blockbuster. A movie that doesn't cost a lot of money to make, but is aiming to be a big blockbuster, aiming for that sort of blockbuster aesthetic. Things like some of the 80s live-action Disney movies, like Flight of the Navigator, or Tron, or, even like one of Sean Levy's previous movies, Real Steel. This movie's not trying to be a big epic blockbuster, but it wants to have that aesthetic. So it's a blockbuster on a budget. And so it's basically family video. Haha! Rental jokes. But yeah, Adam Project, it's not the worst thing Netflix has put out. My God, they have the Goop Show over on Netflix, for God's sakes. And they have God knows how many other absolutely wretched movies over there. This is fine. This is kind of like something that kids would watch on like Saturday afternoon when the cartoons are over, I feel like, or something that like they could easily get in the DVD bin at Walmart while their parents are shopping. You know, it's something that the kids might enjoy for a bit, and something that it's very family friendly ish, but not like for general audiences. So it's got a bit of an edge to it. So it's not great, but I mean, it's something. Wait, Okja? I liked Okja. I loved Okja. I loved Okja as a great commentary on the food industry and whatnot. And I thought it was madcap and wild. So yeah. Anyway, that's all for the new releases. And speaking of Netflix, I did watch one other thing through them. Speaking of terrible things on Netflix, Don't Look Up. Oh, Jesus, Netflix, why would you do that? No. Do not let your kids watch Okja. That is not a family movie. Anyway, terrible movie on Netflix. Don't Look Up. I stand by it. Yeah, I missed that Netflix tried to classify it as a family-friendly movie, and I didn't hear any about that. I just assumed that they were treating it like an adult movie, which is what it is. It's an adult commentary on the meat industry. But yeah, so fun fact about this one. I attempted to watch it when it first came out. I got about half an hour in and just straight gave up. Oof. Wow, Netflix, this is why you don't leave things to the algorithms. Yeah, I watched this for 30 minutes and just straight gave up. I couldn't take it. And so, in order to have something else for me to comment on, for me to review this week, and in order to start catching up on my to-watch list for the Oscars, I've got like, how many movies do I have on that list? I think it's like 21. And I think like most of them are available to stream. Let me see. "21 films, and most of them and a bunch of them are either on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or HBO. So I've got a bit to catch up before the Oscars, and so I started with this one because I started the movie and I just couldn't sit through it. And I think the problem is it's too bitter. It is absolutely shit. The Muppets should host the Oscars. Disney owns the Muppets. They own ABC. Every year the Muppets should host the Oscars. Like, who would be against that? Like, if we're gonna have a live Oscars hosting, like if we're gonna have a live presentation for the Oscars every year, at least let the Muppets host it. The Muppets host it every year, and every year it's something else. It's something crazy that year that the team over at the Henson Company came up with over the course of the year. That should be the Oscars from now on. Every year hosted by the Muppets, and then maybe a special guest host. Like, oh, it's the Muppets featuring Anne Hathaway, or featuring, somebody else. So there's a human to work off of. Really, would anybody be against that? Anyway, this movie is so abjectly bitter and nihilistic that even I couldn't take it. This is a level of just nihilistic bile that just is spewing for over the course of 2 hours, and there's nothing really redeeming about the entire experience. And I genuinely don't understand what people got from this movie. Because that's the thing, is like, the overall experience was terrible. Everything about it was jaded and bitter and just awful to sit through. But usually the excuse for that is that they have something of value to say. That there's something worth saying through the course of the movie. This is just Adam McKay taking pot shots at Fox News and ex-President Trump and his administration. That's basically, he's taking pot shots at Facebook, Trump, and the news media. That's it. It's like, it's not even like new commentary. We've been getting this kind of satire for decades. And McKay feels just kind of like, it feels like this was hit him in a really low moment where he's just like, you know what, the comet should just come hit us all, we should all die. And he just got really doomerist and nihilistic and like, just wanting the world to end. And I think he just put that all into this movie, and it just wasn't any good. There was no real gain from this movie. Because even like I said, even the satire is blunt and is basic. It's not a real satire of the world, as the world in of corporations and of politics and all that. It's not a real skewering of them, because it's just basically pointing out, hey, remember this shitty thing that happened? Yeah. Okay, then. That's it. That's all I had to say. There's no real commentary on it. There's no real punchline to it all. It's just abjectly bitter and hostile and hateful and just angry. And there's nothing and you just kind of sit there and stew in it. That's all that happens. You sit there and you stew in the bitterness, and you have to stew in it for 2 hours and 15 minutes for some godforsaken reason. I think that's the other thing too, is that this movie is ungodly long. There's no reason for this movie to be over 2 hours long. And yet, apparently people think basic level pot shots at Trump and Fox News makes it a good movie. Because, like, this is up for, I think, editing? Like, video editing? And there are some basic level editing issues throughout this movie. Like, this movie will just randomly cut away to nature B-roll of, like, hippos and animals apropos of nothing. The editing in this movie is garbage. And yet it got nominated for it for the Oscars. And even though the cast here is all A-list talent, Jennifer Lawrence, Leo DiCaprio, Meryl Streep, Mark Rylance. Hello. Hey, Eclipse. Thanks for the follow. Hey, I got the alerts to work again, finally. I figured out the problem. Now they can actually show up on the screen. Well, that's the thing. Forward, good editing is something that takes a lot of... It's something that you notice beyond just the basic editing. It's not... There's a lot to editing that is more than just scene progression. There's a real talent that a really good editor can bring to a film. And in fact, a lot of times the editor will make the movie better than the director intended. Especially since there were a lot of times where there were women working as editors that made that movie great. I think, yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing is like, you don't, good editing is something you tend not to notice unless it's a flourish or an artistic note. A lot of times good editing is just something, it's like good sound design or good music. You don't think about it. It adds to the experience and you have to remember like, okay, yeah, that didn't stand out to me as like amazing or good, but it helped make the movie function. When it's doing its job right, it's unnoticeable. And then you get movies like this where the editing is bad enough that any basic level editor can notice like, wait, no. Exactly. And so you get editing bad enough to notice by anybody with basic editing skills, and it gets nominated for that specifically. Like, really? You couldn't give it to literally anything else. Out of all of the movies that came out last year with much better editing, you gave it to this piece of shit. Ugh. But yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from it all is that if the movie was not about the two scientists, and instead they focused specifically on the presidential administration fucking everything up, and they made it basically like a satire of the administration in particular, instead of like trying to make it about science communication and the corporate news media and all that, if they made it just about the levels of corruption, well, it usually is. I mean, prestige films are usually what get nominated for the Oscars anyway. And like the other, what were the other nominees for editing? Let me see. The other nominees for editing were Dune, which had actually some really solid editing, I think. King Richard, Power of the Dog, and Tick Tick Boom. So once again, much more prestigious kind of films, much more higher class style film. Some things that are very clearly gunning for awards. But this was not good editing. This was just genuinely bad editing. But yeah, I think they had focused, if they had cut out the bit with the scientists or just made them side characters, and it was all about how the administration is so corrupt and stupid and incompetent that they bungled this whole thing, that could have worked. But I think by focusing specifically on the two major characters who are trying to communicate that there's a problem and it being shouted over by complete idiots, I think it just made the whole experience unbearable. Like, there's no real reason to sit there and deal with stuff that people basically deal with on a day-to-day basis. This is the kind of shit we already go through. Why are you making us go through it for 2 hours at a time? It's just, plus there's a bit in the movie that I don't quite understand. Hold on, I'm gonna look something up real quick. There's something in the plot that's been bugging me, and I want to see if Wikipedia explains it. Okay. Anti-campaign, cuts Russia comment mining deal, so they prepare a joint effort to deflect the comment. And for the so yeah, there's okay. Oh yeah, there's not only a second Puss in Boots movie coming, we've had like 2 separate series of Puss in Boots over on Netflix. It's wild what kind of stuff goes on when you're not paying attention. But, in the movie, there's a bit where Leo DiCaprio, after being humiliated and cut away from the administration and from this high-class lifestyle he became and roped up in, he and Jennifer Lawrence team up. No idea about Owl Wizard. But they start this whole campaign of just look up and are trying to, and are calling for other countries to deflect the comet. And apparently, there was only like one shot at this, because the whole reason that the initial plan to deflect the comet didn't work was because Mark Rylance's character discovered there are valuable minerals on the comet that they could mine. And so that became the plan for the US to just basically blow up the comet, let it hit the Earth, and then mine what's left, mine the remnants for valuables. Like, we're talking hundreds of trillions of dollars in valuable tech minerals like gold and probably like lithium or something, and iridium and all kinds of stuff like that. But apparently the only other option besides the corrupt Trumpian presidents and teaming up with Google, Facebook, SpaceX to blow up the comet was Russia, India, and China. That seemed to be the literal only other attempt at deflecting the comet, despite the fact that I swear there was talk about the European Space Administration starting a thing, but no, it literally was just Russia, India, and China who got cut out of the mining deal and decided to blow it up instead and deflect it. And apparently their takeoff didn't work. And they treat it like that was literally their only chance. Like, there was nobody else. No, like, the entire European Union Space Administration, nothing. It was literally just China, Russia, and India. And literally there was the one rocket that they just had. That was literally their only chance. Because that's how the movie treats it. It's so poorly explained. I don't get why people are praising this movie. It is honestly one of Adam McKay's worst. Like, let me look through his filmography. Apparently he wrote on Ant-Man. Weird. Yeah, don't look up at the plot holes. Vice, that was alright. I didn't think it was great. I never saw The Big Short. Anchorman 2, yeah, Anchorman 2 is better than this. I'll say that much. The Other Guys, definitely better than this. Haven't seen Step Brothers. That's a contender. For where I've heard terrible things about Step Brothers. Talladega Nights better, and then Anchorman better. This is genuinely one of his worst, if not his worst movie, and everyone's treating it like it's this fantastic skewering of pop culture and I think it's just liberal Hollywood is so broken that literally any pot shots taken at Trump are treated as like comedy gold, and it's just like, seriously, those lame ass didn't even hit him pot shots you think are knockouts. I think it's just people in Hollywood don't understand that there needs to be more than just the basic kind of pot shots and jokes made when you're writing a satire. A good satire delves into the deeper themes and issues behind its subject matter. And from what I hear, The Big Short actually does basically this, but better. Because it has something smaller to work off of. It isn't trying to be this all-encompassing, like, skewering of, of climate change and the way the media and politics are handling it and all that. And it's not trying, I think it's trying to do too much ultimately. And I think it's just genuinely awful, and I can't believe it's getting the kind of praise that it is. And I think it's just people in Hollywood are so caught up on just being... seriously, there's so many things that they could do. They could be better skewerings of... I think that's the other thing, too, is that trying to mock Trump is shooting fish in a barrel for one thing, and it does nothing, because all it does... It's one thing when you mock, say, Nixon or Bush, It's one thing when you're mocking somebody that doesn't have this cult of personality. You could mock a political figure when there's some level of, like, jester poking fun at the king. And there's some level of, like, shame to poke fun at, or some level of hubris to knock them down a few pegs. Trump is a shameless garbage heap, and his cult are so devoted that, it's one of the only few cults of personality where there is no personality. But, so yeah, it's just a cult. But there is taking pot shots at Trump does nothing, because even if you land a good hit, it's not going to change a thing. He'll just deny that he got hit, and his fans will believe him. I just think that Hollywood never fully got over that happening, and instead of looking inward and realizing, oh wait, maybe we had something to do with it, with, putting this guy's face everywhere and whatnot, treating him like a bigger than life caricature, which is what he wanted, because at least he got attention. Maybe we should acknowledge our part in this. They instead want to be like, take weak ass pot shots at him that don't even hit and act like they knocked him out. It's pathetic, actually, when you think about it. But yeah, this whole experience was just awful, and I can't recommend anybody try to sit through this movie. And I'd be curious to see what exactly people found enjoyable about this movie, other than the fact, like, oh hey, Ariana does a good song in it. But otherwise, she's just playing a dumbed down Ariana. Like, even that, like, once again, the weird pot shots at pop culture don't make any goddamn sense. There's no real thought put into it. It's just like Adam McKay raving wildly and throwing his arms at everything in a fit of rage and not thinking anything through. And everyone's thinking like, genius. But yeah, Don't Look Up, I hated it. And if you liked it, fine, but I couldn't stand it. And I hope it doesn't win a goddamn thing at the Oscars. So, that was the new release. That's what I saw this past week. Nothing much to really talk about, like, discussion-wise. There's nothing really... I didn't want to go into, like, the topics I brought up without really researching them. And so I didn't dig into, like, generational trauma or the nature of streaming services providing outlets for these mid-tier blockbusters. Instead, I decided to just dig through the news, and the biggest stuff, so this is basically like a buckshot commentary on the biggest news articles in terms of entertainment that I saw. at least film entertainment. Namely that, I should add this back up for this, while I'm talking about this. Let me pull up the image. Hey, Bob Chapek, go fuck yourself with a cactus. Bob Chapek, after being absolutely raked over the coals, best of luck with that. I really enjoyed No Way Home, one of my favorite movies. And if nothing else, fairly soon, I'm sure it'll head to, like, video and Disney Plus and all that. If you can see it in the theater, try it, but either way, I think you'll enjoy it. In any case, Bob Chapek, in fact, let me move myself a bit. Nope, that's not what I wanted to move. OBS, here we go, that's what I wanted to move. Move myself off to the side here and get the full experience. Oh, yeah, I've seen that. The literal cactus that looks like something you can go fuck yourself with a cactus with. But, Bob Chapek, after being raked over the coals, rightfully so, not only by the news media and LGBT groups, but by employees of the Disney Corporation. Most notably, Dana Terrace from the Owl House, as well as various other entities within the Disney Corporation, basically came to Bob and said, go fuck yourself with a cactus, you piece of shit. What the fuck? And Bob had to backpedal so hard he left skid marks on the pavement. And he came out, we're pausing all political donation. Yeah, I caught that word there, Bob. You said pause. Which means the minute this dies down, you're gonna go right back to donating to this, fuckers. Don't think we're stupid. This isn't something that this isn't the point where you get off the gas. If anything, you lean in harder on the gas on this fucker. Because if he thinks we can just, let this kind of shit die down, fuck that shit. So yeah, Bob Chapek backpedaled so hard it left skid marks on the pavement, but we're not done just yet. We're gonna make him backpedal harder. Either that or just get the fuck out, because either way I'm happy. So that happened. The other big news story that I didn't want to delve into too much, just because it's out of my lane, so to speak. Recently, during the Critics' Choice Awards, Jane Campion, the director of The Power of the Dog, one of the major favorites for the awards season, won for Best Director and used her acceptance speech to compare the struggles against the patriarchy to Venus and Serena goddamn Williams. And Christ, I hope that was just a joke that they took out of context, because otherwise, Jesus tap dancing Christ, lady. This, and the reason I don't want to delve too deep into this is because this is entirely outside of my wheelhouse. I am a cishet white dude. This deals specifically with white feminism butting heads against non-white feminism, and the comparisons of the struggles that they face. And that has its own long-standing history that I am not equipped to discuss. So suffice to say that Jane Campion is a dumbass and needed to just be graceful, not try to take pot shots at anybody else, even if it was just trying to be self-referential and be like, oh, hey, look, you will never know what it's like for me to struggle as a white woman in Hollywood, the daughter of two famous filmmakers. Yeah, it turns out she's also a legacy baby, so that's fun. Which is why, Christ Almighty, I hope it was just a very poorly, very poor attempt at trying to take pot shots at herself to Venus and to endear herself to Venus and Serena. I'd have to actually watch the clip, but otherwise, because that's not something you want to read. That is not something you should be saying at all if you can be taken out of context. But the biggest article I saw that I wanted to talk about was Samuel L. Jackson being interviewed by Variety. Let me move this down. Yep, let me... Oh, that's right. That's part of the background, so I need to make it smaller. Anyway. Samuel L. Jackson commenting... Because the big gotcha question in Hollywood reporting nowadays is asking the old guard of directors what their thoughts on for Marvel. And generally speaking, I think Scorsese's was the most nuanced. His concern isn't, he's not into Marvel, but he's also never been into superheroes that much, which makes sense. That's just not his style. That's not everybody's style. His concern was more with the corporatization of Hollywood. And when you understood that's what he was going for, and that he was just taking out of context to try and make him sound like some out-of-touch old man yelling at cloud while everybody enjoys superhero movies, he was mainly talking about how corporate Hollywood is kind of throttling the film industry. And basically his response was, Scorsese's initial response was the same as Stellan Skarsgård's was when asked that question, except Skarsgård acknowledged the love of superhero films and having been in superhero films, the enjoyment that people get out of it, but that the problem is in and of itself the corporatization of Hollywood. And I think people were more willing to latch on to Skarsgård's response because it wasn't framed to them as old man doesn't like the same thing you do. I think Spielberg was commenting on similar issues with the over corporatization of Hollywood kind of pigeonholing and bottlenecking the entire industry to just only make blockbusters and always make big things and not concerning itself with the other aspect of the film economy. And so the latest person they asked about, apparently they asked him over on The View, actually, I don't know what he was doing over on The View. What's he promoting? What's he in right now? Because Secret Invasion is still being worked on. Let me see what he's got to promote. He may have just showed up because they wanted him on, because he's a goddamn treasure. He is set to produce a live-action Afro Samurai, and is assuming the role of Sho'nuff in the remake of Last Dragon. I am here for those. Yes. Hell yes. Sam Jackson is Sho'nuff. That's like pitch perfect casting for him. If we're gonna get a Last Dragon remake, one, it could actually be a better movie, and two, we could have Samuel L. Jackson as Sho'nuff. Hell yes, sign me up. But yeah, let me take a look at his IMDb to see if there's something in the works. He was on What If? Oh, this is probably what he's promoting. The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. It's an Amazon Plus series. Suddenly left without his trusted caretaker, Ptolemy Gray is assigned to the care of orphan teenager Robin. When they learn about a treatment that will restore Ptolemy's memories, they begin the journey towards... Okay, interesting. This is Walter Mosley. Okay, I know that guy. I see his books in at work all the time. And apparently he also has worked on a bunch of stuff. He even wrote the book for Devil in a Blue Dress back in the day. Anyway, so yeah, Samuel L. Jackson was on The View. They asked him his thoughts on the whole thing, and he's like, yeah, these old fogies are mad that their stuff isn't getting seen. And he kind of expounded on that people are mainly going to see movies for entertainment, and that superheroes are just the latest the latest genre that has captured the cultural attention. When we were younger, people went to see cowboy movies, and then they went to see superhero movies, and of another ilk. They had superheroes on television, and serious dramas and the prestige stories. That's always kind of been a niche audience, and the same thing is just happening again. It's just the genre that's the flavor of the time is different. And that, I forget what Cameron said on it. But yeah, people just want to go into this room, look at a big screen, and be entertained for the most part. They're not looking for prestige and high-class drama and art. All movies are valid. Some go to the cinema to be moved dearly. Some like superheroes. If somebody has more butts on seats, it just means your audience is not as broad. There are people who have had successful careers, but nobody can recite one line of their parts. I'm the guy who says shit that's on a t-shirt. So, yeah, Samuel L. Jackson basically hits the nail on the head that popular movies may make the are the ones that make the money, but it's not about, you can't be mad at the popular movies. Oh, Jesus. Frickin' Roland Emmerich. Roland Emmerich was getting mad about superhero movies as though he didn't make fucking Independence Day and Godzilla. Yeah, Roland Emmerich needs to keep his filthy mouth shut. He's just mad that the superheroes have taken over his spot as the popular film genre. But yeah, Samuel L. Jackson pretty much hit the nail on the head. That this is about how this has always kind of been the case. There's always been the genre that people go to see in droves because it's entertaining to watch. It's the food for it's the not opiate for the masses, but it's a cultural engagement for them a lot of times. I mean, you think about the times like in Endgame with the audience reaction, or in I'm trying to think of other ones like that. You see these. There are moments when a movie will have a cultural impact on an audience, all collectively, and you feel it. And those are going to be from the popular movies, not so much from the prestige movies. Prestige movies have always kind of been there for the artists to be like showcasing, look how good I can make this movie in terms of the higher class, the higher echelon thinking of film as an art medium. But film as an entertainment medium, yeah, sci-fi in the 80s and early 90s, and then before then, like disaster movies in the 70s. There's always kind of been something that the audiences like to see for entertainment, and then the prestige stuff is off to the side. You can't be, like, just because superheroes are the in thing now doesn't mean they'll stay the in thing, and it doesn't mean that they're bad. It doesn't mean that they are bad or that the prestige movies are bad. It's like Jackson said, all movies are valid. We see movies for different reasons. You can watch a movie and get moved by the artistry of it, or you can just be entertained by it. Or in Don't Look Up's case, for me, neither. But yeah, this is kind of the overall... Yeah, exactly. Gotta use something for the dough to make the fancy bread. So you don't really... Oh yeah, like, And that's the other thing, too, is that you could have prestige superhero movies at this point. The Batman is much more like a prestige art film than it is a traditional superhero movie. And so was Joker. Joker was aiming for the more prestigious artistic take on the character than the traditional superhero style to it. So you could have prestige superhero movies, which is something that we never really got with the previous genres and stuff. I mean, we could have prestige sci-fi, but it wasn't still part of the main zeitgeist of the genre. They were more prestige stuff. There was never really a prestige disaster movie. There were prestige westerns, but they weren't the ones that people went to see. And I don't even know if they're I don't know how many of there were prestige westerns. They may have just gotten the prestige after the fact. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're at a point now where we could have prestigious superhero movies, and I feel like this debate is actually kind of tiresome. Like, what are we gaining from this? Yeah, Rango was aiming for, like, more of a prestigious take on the Western, while also being a fun kids movie. But yeah, I think asking this question of people is just kind of run its course. Like, what are we going to gain from this conversation moving forward? We've kind of hit all of the major beats. Prestige film has its place. Superhero movies are just the in thing that people see en masse. And then you can have both, and it's okay. And I feel like this is just mainly there to drive clicks. It's just mainly there for people to pay attention to and talk about. And case in point, I just did. So yeah, I think it's a tiresome conversation to have at this point, because there's nothing else to really be gained from it. But I did like Samuel L. Jackson's take, and I wanted to acknowledge it. Also, by doing so, I learned that he is trying to produce an Afro Samurai movie, and he's also going to be Shonuff in the Last Dragon remake, so wins all around. Now then, how about we take a look at the box office? For this past week. Let me zoom in a bit, because it's a bit on the small side. So, looking at it from last week, the top two haven't changed. Exactly. As long as the movie hasn't bored your audience in some regard, you've won. I do need to work on that. That may be my thing for next week. The whole quadrant of quality and artistry versus entertainment value. But in any case, Batman is still number one. Brought in $66 million this weekend, bringing its total gross up to $239 million. So yeah, it's raking in that money. It dropped by half, which is expected from 1 week to the next. For the big release. But the fact that it's still, even by dropping by half, it's still number one and still raking in $66 million means people are still seeing this goddamn movie. Uncharted brought in $9.2 million, bringing it up to domestically $113 million. I think it just last week broke even for its budget. Let me see. Yeah, its current box office gross is $301 million. So they are starting to break even, and we might actually start getting get a Uncharted 2 if this keeps going. Number 3 was a limited release BTS concert. It brought in $6.8 million, apparently, from 800 theaters. So apparently that counts. Number 3 from last week is the number 4 Dog Drop Down. That one's still kind of struggling. That was the Channing Tatum dog movie. It's fine. Spider-Man No Way Home, still number 5. Still making in that money. $4 million. And where is it in regards to... let me see. Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm gonna see... I need to see the... I need to see the box office numbers. Let me see. Characters, television series, one-shot members, recurring cast and characters. That's not what I want. Timeline, feature. Here we go. And then we want to organize it by... Wait. Where's the box office? Here we go. Box office performance. Here we go. So we want to organize it by highest grossing. Spider-Man No Way Home. Still about 130 million away from catching up to Infinity War. So it's still number 3. But hey, that means it overtook Marvel's The Avengers and Age of Ultron and Black Panther to become the 3rd highest grossing Marvel Cinematic Universe film to date. And it's still a 1.8 billion with a B dollars. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Death in the Nile brought in 2.4 million, domestically $40 million. Let me take a look at how it is doing overall. It actually broke over its $90 million budget, it looks like. You'd think so, but remember, people went to see Age of Ultron in droves because of how good Avengers was. And it only only managed to not catch up to it because people stopped going back because they realized it sucked. But, apparently, Death on the Nile managed to break past its budget, but I don't know that... I think the only way that Kenneth Branagh is going to be able to sell a 3rd Poirot movie is if this does really well on video, or if... Okay, there is a sequel in development. Okay. So apparently he was able to get more Poirot movies, and apparently he also wants to make more Christie characters like Miss Marple into films to have like a shared universe. That feels weird to say. But number 7 is some Indian movie, Radha Shyam. Only in 800 theaters, brought in 1.8 million. Sing 2, Jackass Forever, Scream. That's pretty much it. So yeah, that's been that. So not a whole lot of changes, and a couple of weird surprises, like that freaking BTS. That apparently BTS counts towards the box office for a limited release, and also apparently this. Apparently I broke Box Office Mojo. Perfect website, completely fine working website. Great job, Amazon. You're doing fantastic with this site. Taking a look at what's coming up, we've got... What do we got next week? List of American films of 2022. Next week, coming up, we've got Rescued by Ruby, which is some Netflix dog biopic. State trooper named Dan who dreams of joining the Canine Search and Rescue State and Police. Oh, goody. And it stars a bunch of people I've never heard of. Fantastic. Sure, it'll be great. But there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies listed for the 18th. We've got The Outfit from Focus Features. It's a It's Mark Rylance in what's hopefully going to be a good movie, where he's a tailor for the mob. I have not seen Tall Girl 2, and I probably will have to sit through it for the worst of the year. We've also got Deep Water on Hulu with Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. You've got Cheaper by the Dozen, the remake over on Disney Plus with Zach Braff and Gabrielle Union of all people. Like, where did it's like, let's see who we got. Zach Braff and throw a dart at the board. Okay, Gabrielle Union. That's going to be our couple. Make it. Netflix is making a movie called Windfall with Lily Collins and Jesse Plemons. Let me take a look at this. Windfall. Wealthy couple comes to their vacation home only to discover someone in the middle of robbing it. That sounds kind of interesting. This is from Charlie McDowell, best known for The One I Love. Never seen it. I don't think I've seen it. Yeah, never seen it. Apparently it's a Mark Duplass film. And The Discovery, I also never saw it. That was for Netflix. So I have no idea if this guy's stuff is any good. UMMA is a horror film produced by, or is that starring Sandra Oh? Starring Sandy Oh. Man, she is on a roll lately. Just in Turning Red. She was in Raya and the Last Dragon. Now she's in this cool-ass horror movie. Korean immigrant and her daughter live on a rural farm raising bees without modern technology. When Amanda receives the cremated ashes of her deceased estranged mother, it unleashes a vicious spirit intent on taking her body for itself. Interesting. Dermot Mulroney showing up in there as some character. So yeah, this should be interesting. I don't know if I'll be able to see it near me, but I like it. Good stuff for Sandra Oh. I've never seen her in a horror movie. I'll have to see how that goes. Alice, starring Keke Palmer. Looks like it's going for a blaxploitation kind of deal. Which, you know what? If they can make a decent blaxploitation pastiche, I'm there for it. X from A24. Starring Mia Goth and Jenna Ortega. Oh wait, I know this one. Porn crew goes to a household owned by these old couple, and then they start getting murdered. Yes, I'm in. Ty West, hell yes, let's do this. So that's coming out next week. Master over on Amazon Studios, starring Regina Hall. It's apparently a Sundance movie. Doesn't list a plot. And finally, Measure of Revenge, starring Bella Thorne and Melissa Leo. Measure of Revenge, no plot listed. Always a good sign. Doesn't say. Director just goes by the name Peyfa. Peyfa. So, who the hell knows? Does IMDb have a plot? The story follows a theater actress whose son dies mysteriously when the investigation officer rules the cause of death as an accidental overdose. So apparently, the mom, Melissa Leo, teams up with her son's drug dealer to find out what happened, why her son was murdered. That sounds interesting, but it could go any number of ways. What about Master? What does IMDb say about the plot for that? Two African-American women begin to share disturbing experiences at a predominantly white college at New England. Ooh, interesting. Mariama Diallo, best known for Hairwolf, Sketch, White Devil. Okay, so this is actually her feature-length debut. Interesting. So I'll have to check that out. So let's see. That's new releases on Amazon, 2 for Netflix, 1 on Hulu, and 1 on Disney Plus. Holy shit, my weekend's gonna be packed. But yeah. The only other thing that really dropped recently was the Sonic trailer, and that looks good. Oh Jesus, no. Oh boy, Twitch, man, Twitch. They just everyone's trying to latch onto them. Oy vey. But in any case, I think we'll call it there. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to where's your name? I forgot it already. It's been forever. It's been like 10 minutes. I've forgotten your name already. Where did your name go? Yeah, where's the alert? Eclipse. Now, why it was so hard to find that name? Thank you, Eclipse, for the follow. We're gonna go find somebody to raid. Let me see who's live. Who's live right now? Same for smaller. There's a whole bunch of big VTubers and streamers who are live. Let's go pay a visit to somebody on the small side like me. Oh, I just met this. I just was talking to this girl today. Her name is Rosie Bell Moo. She is a cow VTuber, and she is playing Super Auto Pets. Let's go raid her. I think this is her first stream? So yeah, let's head on over. Thanks everybody for tuning in, but I've got to tune out. See ya, folks.